Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and hi. So before we start, let us first look at this picture. Have you ever seen this before? The Mauripan or the instant yeast? And what did you make by using this product? What did you make by using this product? Maybe you have seen your sisters or your mothers you yourself have used it, and how this product helps the production of your answered food. So how do you think this Marifan or this instant yeast helps to make the food that you mentioned just now? Okay, so this um, product is actually related to the topic that we will learn today, which is the fermentation. So this is the overview. Okay, this is a bit related to the previous topic, which first glucose will be transformed into pyruvate, and they will produce 2 ATP in the process, and this is called glycolysis. While for the pyruvate, they will choose to use or to enter the aerobic respiration or the anaerobic respiration, which we usually call them as fermentation. So how do we know the pyruvate will enter which condition? So first, let's look at the oxygen. If there is the presence of oxygen is there, so the pyruvate will choose to enter the aerobic respiration, and they will undergo the oxidation of pyruvate, making 36 ATP. While for the pyruvate, if they saw or they feel that there is no oxygen or the absence of oxygen, they will choose to enter the fermentation, which there is divided into two, which is the alcohol fermentation and also the lactic acid fermentation. And how do we know pyruvate will undergo which one? So it depends on what type of microorganism or what type of species are you. So if yeast and plants, the pyruvate will undergo the alcohol fermentation. But if there are some selected bacteria or animals like human, they will enter the lactic acid fermentation. So fermentation is the incomplete breakdown of glucose in conditions of limited oxygen or without oxygen. So why do we say a limited oxygen? Let's say the condition is like this. You need 2 coins, okay, for you to able to play one game, for example, but you only have 1 coin at that time. So can you play the game? Cannot. So that is how we relate to the situation. The oxygen is there, but it is not enough. Or there is no oxygen at all, so you cannot undergo the aerobic. So rather you choose the fermentation. So fermentation, as been stated in the previous slide, we have alcohol fermentation and also lactic acid fermentation. So let us look at the alcohol fermentation. It is the incomplete breakdown of glucose to ethanol, carbon dioxide, and also energy. Okay, if you can see the equation at the bottom, the glucose will be transformed into ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy, which is 210 kilojoules. And in alcohol fermentation, it occurs in yeast and also plants. So, for yeast, ethanol that had been produced is used in the making of beer and also wine. So what is actually yeast? Is it alive? So yeast is actually a single cell organism. So if you can see, this is the structure of the yeast. Okay, it is an organism actually. So the one is the one that we use in more refined alive. Huh. So find your answer. So in alcohol fermentation, in yeast, they will produce ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. And how the production of this product helps in the making of another product. So the ethanol that produced by the yeast will be used in the making of beer and also wine, while the carbon dioxide will help to make the bread dough rise. So that is how it will make or it will form the bread. So in plants, the alcohol fermentation, how does it happen? So paddy plant is the one that grow in waterlogged or the place that is saturated with water or full of water area, which they have less oxygen. So they carry out alcohol fermentation. And ethanol produced by paddy plants is toxic to most plants, but not for paddy plant. Because why? Because they have higher tolerance for ethanol that had been designed for them. And paddy plants produce plenty of alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme that will break down the ethanol into non-toxic carbon dioxide. So why actually this plant or the paddy plant need oxygen? Okay, usually plant need oxygen which they will use it or the roots will take it up for cellular respiration to make some nutrients or to make energy for the production of their cells. So for paddy plant, they have actually they had been designed to have a large A spaces or we can say in the stem it's a bit large than other plants which they will allow the oxygen to come through it. And how that did they come through? By the root. So the condition is like this. If a plant is immersed too long, okay, the oxygen concentration will fall rapidly because the root cannot get the oxygen that they need as the water um, had filled up the space for the oxygen. So they need oxygen for the respiration, but in this condition, in this paddy plant condition, they switch to the respiration by using fermentation or alcoholic fermentation for them to survive. And the ethanol that being produced that is actually not good will be able to be break down by their alcohol dehydrogenase, which the paddy plant had been designed to produce it. So that is how the regulation in the paddy plant. So just now we had learned about the alcohol fermentation, and now we will look at the lactic acid fermentation. So lactic acid fermentation is the breakdown of glucose into lactic acid and energy. So as you can see the word equation, glucose arrow which it will produce the lactic acid and energy which is 150 kilojoule. So in lactic acid fermentation we have lactobacillus and also human muscle cells. In alcohol fermentation just now we have what? We have the yeast and also plants. So let us look at the lactobacillus. So lactobacillus carries out milk fermentation to produce yogurt. Okay, the yogurt that you always eat or the yogurt drink. Okay, so this is the structure of the lactobacillus, which they will act on the lactose or the milk sugar. Okay, it will act on the milk sugar or lactose and then forming the lactic acid. So the lactic acid will then further coagulate and forming the yogurt. And as you can see the emojis or the pictures of this boy seems that they had he had eat something sour. So the lactic acid is the source or is the one responsible for the sour taste in yogurt. So that's how you can taste the sourness in yogurt. So have you experienced of heavy breathing after you run or marathon or cycling intensely? Okay, what comes to your mind at that time? Okay, imagine that you had entered the marathon for 5 kilometers, and after you finish it, you will still breathe heavily and you feel like fainting, you feel like you lack of oxygen, you feel like you don't want to run again. So that's what comes at my mind. So what comes to your mind at that time? So this is how it's been explained. Okay, which the lactic acid fermentation that happen in human muscle cells. So when you carry out vigorous training, okay, you can see this little boy running vigorously, or maybe he had been chased by something or late for any occasion. So during vigorous training, the rate of oxygen used exceeds the oxygen supply by blood circulatory system. Meaning that when you run vigorously, okay, in your body, you have this certain amount of blood that being supplied by the this certain amount of oxygen that being supplied by the blood. Okay, so when you run, you need a lot more oxygen at a faster rate of time it being supplied. You cannot inhale oxygen and it will come or it will go to all your body parts. It needs to be absorbed first in the red blood cells and then only it will being bring to your organs. So the conversion or this process is actually quite take a long of time. So what happened? The muscle is in oxygen deficiency state and undergo oxygen debt. This is because you have insufficient of oxygen. Okay, you need more than what you have. So you need to pay the oxygen that originally in your body. So during this process, glucose cannot break down completely. Okay, if you can remember after glycolysis, okay, it will choose whether to enter the aerobic or the anaerobic. So one glucose will break down and produce 2 ATP. Okay, and after glucose breakdown or glycolysis, it continues by lactic acid fermentation. It will produce the lactic acid. So when you run vigorously, okay, your body will switch to the anaerobic respiration or the lactic acid fermentation because of the insufficient of oxygen. So your glucose will not be oxidized completely, and which it will cause it to produce the lactic acid. So how this lactic acid um, acts on your body? It will accumulate when the process. If you remember, this process is quite short, meaning that it do not require a long time to produce. So in 1 hour, maybe you can produce 10 process of this, but for the aerobic, maybe you can perform 2 or 3 of these. So the high production rate will make the lactic acid to accumulate. So when it accumulates, it have one limit where the concentration of the lactic acid at that level will cause you to feel fatigue and also to have the muscle cramps because too much of lactic acid. So once the vigorous training stops, you will breathe more heavily, which will lead the intake of more oxygen. So when you breathe heavily, you will get more oxygen to refill back what you initially have in your body and for the use of your organ. And then the excess oxygen from the intake just now will oxidize the lactic acid into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So when all lactic acid had been expelled, so only then the oxygen depth is repaid. Okay, so this is the graph for the lack of oxygen in muscle and oxygen depth repaid. You can see when you run vigorously, okay, or when you exercise, the oxygen intake or the oxygen demand in your body will be higher, okay, it will increase. So after recovering, okay, at the end of exercise, you need to fill back the oxygen, okay, where the oxygen depth will be repeat until at the end of recovery. So, which organisms contain in Yakult? Have you during this one? Okay, so please find the information about it. So these are the similarities between the aerobic respiration and fermentation. So first is the process begins in cytoplasm. Okay, you remember? It begins in cytoplasm and it produces chemical energy in the form of ATP. So what else? Can you state the other similarity? What is the similarities that you can find or you can point out from the aerobic respiration and fermentation? So these are the differences between these two aerobic respiration and fermentation. First one is the need presence of, for aerobic, of course, you need glucose and oxygen. But for anaerobic, you need glucose for glycolysis. And the oxidation of glucose for aerobic respiration is being oxidized completely into carbon dioxide and water. But for anaerobic respiration, glucose is not oxidized completely, forming ethanol and carbon dioxide, or they will form lactic acid. Depends on which types of fermentation they undergo. The location. Okay, aerobic respiration occurs in cytoplasm and mitochondria, while anaerobic respiration occurs in cytoplasm. And the stages involved for aerobic respiration, you have glycolysis and oxidation of pyruvate, while for anaerobic respiration, they will undergo glycolysis and fermentation. And water being produced in aerobic respiration while it not being produced in anaerobic respiration. And for the energy production, aerobic will produce, one molecule will produce 2898 kilojoule of energy. But for anaerobic respiration, for alcoholic fermentation, one molecule of glucose will produce 210 kilojoule, while 150 kilojoule for lactic acid fermentation. Okay, so let's look at the summary, which fermentation is divided into two, alcohol fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. And in alcohol fermentation, the yeast and the plants undergo it, while in the lactic acid fermentation, lactobacillus and human muscle cells will carry out the lactic acid fermentation. So that is all. So that is all from me. Thank you.